first down. The handoff to Marlon Mack. Huge hole, 50-yard line. He's at the 40, still going near sideline. He's at the 10. He's at the 5, and he will score. Touchdown, Marlon Mack. Touchdown, I-N-D-Y. And again, it's picked up. It's Darius Leonard. Leonard with his second INT, and he's streaking down the near sideline. He's at the 40. He's at the 30. He's at the 20. He's going to go. A pick six for the Maniac.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
Hey, what's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to the Bringing the Juice podcast. On with us, friend of the show from the fan, Mr. Kevin Bowen. Kevin, thanks for joining us, man. How are you doing?
Doing great, Cody, and I saw you got a little love from the old Darius Leonard "Bring the Juice" quote, and I must say, being at practice, "Bring the Juice" from Frank Reich and Darius Leonard, probably the two more popular comments that you hear every day at practice, with those two going back and forth.
Absolutely. Man, it's crazy because, we just decided to do that because we saw Frank Reich's shirt last year about Bring the Juice, and we had a couple different people telling us, that's not a Colts name, but here we are, man. I love it, man. I love it. So, Kevin, you just posted an article for the fan, and also you talked about it a little bit on your podcast, and we kind of want to update our listeners a little bit on the Colts rookies so far. Now, obviously, they've had some padded practices down, and obviously they just had a game simulation at Lucas Oil Stadium on Monday. I'm curious on your thoughts on all these rookies, and we'll start with the wide receiver Michael Pittman. What was your thoughts so far in camp?
Yeah, I would say it's been relatively quiet. I think his game can be a bit, quiet isn't the right term, but he kind of can get you 7 for 84, and you don't really know that it's that much. But then if he hits that deep ball, like we saw against Utah last season or the Colorado plays, then it's like, wow. And, he can be 7 for 84, but when 3 of those catches come on third down or in the red zone, then that all of a sudden takes it to a whole nother level. But yeah, and maybe I'm basing this too much off of Monday's practice at Lucas Oil Stadium, but I think it was 40 passes completed in that practice and only one.
Wow.
Only one target for Pittman. Okay. I don't think he had a catch. So just a hair quiet so far. Is it the most alarming thing in the world? No. I mean, we're a week and a half into training camp. I kind of always try to preface that and just say, this is what I've seen so far, and life in the NFL can be difficult for rookie wideouts. That's why, A.J. Brown's the only 1,000-yard wideout this league has seen as a rookie since Michael Thomas. So that's just kind of life of it so far. But still, there's been some positive moments from Pittman. I like his hands. There's been a drop or two, but you love the frame. And Phillip Rivers is a guy that's used to that. And I know Phillip Rivers is going to give Michael Pittman chances to make plays this season. So, yeah, that's just kind of been just a little bit of an up and down start to camp for him.
Absolutely, man. And we knew, like you mentioned, Kevin, Frank Reich, Chris Ballard have talked about it. That's kind of the nature of the wide receiver position, at least as a rookie. It takes a little bit of time for a lot of these guys. Thinking of Paris Campbell last year, it takes a lot of time for some of these guys to develop. Let's stay with this skill positions. Jonathan Taylor, the next pick in the draft. We obviously saw him first day of pads. He looked ginormous. He looked insane, and we obviously saw that video as well where defenders were bouncing off of him, and Tavon Wilson actually takes a tumble in that game. What have been your impressions overall of Jonathan Taylor so far?
Yeah, I mean, certainly last Tuesday's practice indoors was the eye-popping one. That was the highlight reel that we're kind of used to Jonathan Taylor doing it in the Big Ten. And I would say Marlon Mack honestly had that sort of day on Monday. Besides that, nothing crazy from Taylor. He's had some catches out of the backfield. He's had a couple of drops, and that was, a question on him coming out of Wisconsin. With running backs, it can be difficult, because, again, it's kind of live, not all the way live. When you get in the open field, it's not really live. And Taylor, getting him into a rhythm, certainly he's rotating in with the starting unit, but getting into a consistent rhythm is not something that we've seen just yet. So I always think it is kind of really hard to get a great read on rookies. I still think he's shown the explosion. He's clearly shown some sort of mental aptitude to be able to handle a role here in 2020. And I'd be very surprised if he's not doing something significant for this football team throughout the 2020 season.
Yeah, and you mentioned it in your article. You know, him and all running backs, they've been seeing a lot more passes out of the backfield this year. Now, we know at Wisconsin he wasn't necessarily largely tapped into in the passing department, more of just a runner. What is your opinion overall on so far, your impressions on him catching out of the backfield?
Yeah, you know, when I watch him catch it, I don't feel like he's a guy that doesn't want the ball. Or, I mean, I think everybody can kind of see a natural catcher versus not a natural catcher. And I don't look at him and think he's fighting it or he's hoping it. It's wishful thinking or like, one of those things. But, you know, I remember Kevin Rogers, the director of pro personnel for the Colts, saying at Jonathan Taylor's pro day, he was one of the few pro days that actually got in before COVID, that he caught the ball beautifully out of the backfield there. And, I mean, think about it. If you're Paul Chryst in Wisconsin, why are you going to run the kid in the ground on third down when he's gashing people for 5 and 6 yards on first and second down? So I wanted to have an open mind, you know, as a pass catcher for him, but then also realize he's never really done it. And the NFL pass catching is so much different than pass catching in the collegiate game for a running back. I also think it can be part of his development that's really important. You know, Marlon Mack, I still think, is a really effective runner on first and second down. But if you can have that third down luxury, I think that's where people disagree with the pick of Taylor a little bit. It's like, if he's not going to impact on third down, is he really worth it at 41 overall? Because third down means so much in this league. So I think I still think he can be, you know, very effective on first and second down and be worthy of that pick. But I'm willing to listen to that debate. So I think that is vital for him just to, you know, round out that game. Naeem Hines, I think, is still going to be the guy, but, you know, set up a screen, you know, do something to where you aren't tipping your hand totally when you come on the field of this is, you know, stone hands in the game and the Colts aren't going to throw him the football.
Absolutely. And then Julian Blackman, third-round pick this year out of Utah. He obviously hasn't been practicing yet because he's still recovering from that ACL injury he suffered last year at Utah. But some potential good news out of his camp. The Colts have said that they could potentially activate him in a couple weeks here. What are your thoughts and overall impressions on that?
Yeah, you know, when you look at him, and even he's done a little bit of on-field stuff to the side, he's a good-looking athlete. And obviously the Colts were obsessed with him, you know, and realized that they were probably going to be missing out on some of this rookie season for him. So, you know, activated here in a couple weeks. I mean, that kind of aligns with the Colts time frame. I mean, they thought, you know, not be ready for game reps until September or October. And, you know, we aren't even to September yet. So I wouldn't expect him to play in September. You know, maybe October he can get on the field. But, yeah, I mean, if you can get him into practice 2 to 3 weeks to ramp it up, maybe more he would need. Obviously kind of sub packages early on, maybe some special teams. But, you know, it goes without saying how critical he is to what that safety future looks like with the Malik Hooker situation as well. So, yeah, very eager to see him when he does get healthy.
Yeah. And then Jacob Easton, he hasn't seen a ton of live reps yet, but, you know, we know he has a big arm. We knew that coming out when the Colts drafted him. What have been your overall impressions of Jacob Easton so far?
Yeah, I mean, seeing the arm in person, it's eye-popping. I mean, it definitely makes you go, wow, okay, I can see why there was talk of him, in round 1 this time last year. Unfortunately, just not a lot of reps to be thrown out there for the third-team offense, and Chad Kelly has gotten a good amount of them. And, you know, to be fair to Chad Kelly, the offense probably produced a little bit better with him in there than Easton, which you would expect. Chad Kelly's been in the league for, 3 or 4 years now and has been in this offensive system for a year. But I thought yesterday's practice at Lucas Oil were really good for Easton. 5 of 9. I thought he was even better than that, just throwing the ball, just had some couple drops. And, again, he gets the ball from point A, point B in a quicker, fluid rhythm that not every quarterback can do. Honestly, probably many quarterbacks cannot do. Now, it's a lot more than that. He's got a lot to develop and learn. And, you know, I've stressed it on my podcast. No preseason games just absolutely blows for him, and it's just a huge hindrance in his development. So it was good to see him get kind of an expanded look yesterday. And, yeah, I mean, I've seen him throw maybe 20 passes, 25 passes in 11-on-11 settings so far in camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the big arm and also realize that there's a whole lot of room for growth. So huge year for him. And you just wonder, can he get that growth without having a ton of meaningful practice reps, potentially running the scout team?
Right. And that was my question and been our question throughout this whole thing. Without practices, it's like, how is that going to impact his, and not just his, but all the rookies, impact day one? I'm curious. So Danny Pinter and then the 6th-round picks, have any of those guys stood out to you so far?
Yeah, Pinter working at right guard and center, it's always hard for an offensive lineman to really impact, especially interior guys. I think he'll factor into some sort of 6, 7, 8 spot on that line. I would say Rob Windsor, of all the day 3 picks, probably I've noticed the most. Windsor, quick first step, really benefited from no Sheldon Day at practice. Mm-hmm. You see the motor. He could be a 7th defensive lineman. No one pays attention to, but he's getting, 20 snaps a game, something like that. So Windsor's been a guy that's kind of caught my eye. And I think Desmond Patman's been a little bit better than I thought. I thought he was a big-time project. Washington State just rotated in and out, didn't run a massive route tree, a very gadgety offense out there as well. But he's made a few plays. I still don't know if it's enough because special teams means so much to earn a roster spot. But that's what I've noticed with him so far. Jordan Glasgow, he's got to do it on special teams, period. If he's going to make this team, he's got to be a stud on special teams like he was in college.
Yeah, speaking of special teams, Rodrigo Blankenship, Hot Rod, he's better known as, he's obviously been in this kicking competition with Chase McLaughlin so far. How has that been going for him?
I thought he struggled, notably on Monday's practice at Lucas Oil. Had a bad miss to the right from maybe 39 and then missed one to the left from like 53. I think he had 3 misses total. I want to say Chase McLaughlin was 8 for 8 and Hot Rod went 5 of 8. But, he's kicked the ball, I think, pretty well outside of that. I mean, his numbers, and I know I haven't watched every practice. It sounds like his numbers have been a little bit better when we haven't been out there. But when we've been out there, McLaughlin has been the better kicker. And I always thought Chase McLaughlin needed to significantly struggle and Hot Rod, really win the battle by 10, 15%, something like that. So, but, yeah, that's kind of been my takeaway on the old kicker battle.
Yeah. And, I mean, we definitely agree there, Kevin. I think Chase was obviously the favorite coming into camp. And then, Hot Rod comes in, and a lot of people are instantly on that Hot Rod. He's the guy moving forward. And I'm kind of like, I'm just not there, right? And Derek and I have said multiple times on this podcast, man, if it's not broken, why try to fix it? And certainly seeing Chase McLaughlin in game action, because that is the big difference, right? They were simulating game action as opposed to just kicking in practice. We saw Chase McLaughlin showed he's a little bit better under pressure right now. So ultimately, I think that gives him the advantage. Before I let you go, Kevin, I have a question about some of these other undrafted free agents. Any of these guys that the Colts signed have stood out to you so far? Any of these guys really caught your eye so far?
Yeah, it's tough, Cody, for me to confidently say this is a guy that, has a, 40% chance to make the team, something like that. I just can't say that with a whole lot of confidence. There's been so many injuries at tight end that Farrard Green from Mississippi State has probably gotten the most reps of any undrafted free agent. I mean, first team reps at times because Jack Doyle and Trey Burton and Mo Alley Cox have all been in and out. So he's been a guy that I've noticed. I don't know. It's almost like, is he out there so much that eventually he makes a good play and I notice it? It's kind of hard to really realize what's going on there. Having said that, Frank Reich teams usually keep more than 3 tight ends. I think only 3 this year with a fullback if you're going to keep Nix, but yeah, who knows? Maybe keep a 4th tight end and don't keep Nix. So he's probably the one. Defensively, Travis Reed is a big corner. It really catches my eye physically. Noticed him a couple times in one-on-ones. And then Cardell O'Donnell, the undrafted Canadian offensive tackle. I don't know. I think there's something to work with. Really young for a rookie. Maybe he's a practice squad guy.
Yeah, I know Carter O'Donnell's been a name that some Colts fans have thrown out to me, along with some of these other guys as well. So, yeah. Well, that'll wrap up this podcast, guys. Thank you, Kevin, so much for coming on, man, and sharing your thoughts on the Colts rookies and their impact so far. Take care, my friend.
You bet, Cody. Thanks for having me, man.